All right, guys. Happy Tuesday morning here. Um, Depending. Good morning from sunny Central, where it's Tuesday at 8 a.m. Um, Welcome to real estate. So, I like to call it real estate 101 because we're going to start from the basics and go through. Now, some of the things you'll see in this class is different. Every state requirements for the United States to buy, sell real estate is different. Coming from California, where I'm at, it's specifically different because we have some different principles that I'll start to go over today. Now, when the textbook comes, you'll notice that things are a little bit different, just because it's coming from a value approach. When you are taught how to get real estate from the state of California, it's a little bit different. You don't learn that until you actually start into real estate, if that makes sense. So, first, I'll get a little bit about myself. Um, I'm Leon Townsend. I am a professor for this class. I've been in real estate for over 6 years as a licensed real estate professional. I've been teaching college for about 4 years now, ranging in different courses, ranging from accounting to finance to real estate to marketing to ethics to slight forms of business law. So I've taught a lot of different courses. I love teaching. Teaching is very fun for me. Um, it's something that I've always wanted to do since I was a kid. I've tutored all these different types of things. So for me, I've always been comfortable in a classroom setting. And in real estate, I do some of the same things. I do teach courses on specific aspects of real estate in the state of California as well. And you can kind of see a different side from the teaching side to actually being in the practice side. So I'm definitely glad that Windsor gave me the opportunity to teach here and get to learn from you guys. One of my goals as a professor is to try and learn as much from my students as I'm trying to teach them. Because I feel like that is the perfect environment, is where we're all learning from each other. No one's better than someone else. We're all here for the same reasons, which is to grow, to learn, to get insight on things. And I feel like that's the type of environment that I like to incorporate and hope that that comes out. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to raise your hand. Don't hesitate to do anything. Um, how many of you guys have actually been in one of the classes that happened this weekend? You can just raise your hand if you were in a class that happened Sunday or Saturday. Were any of you guys in one of those classes yet? Perfect. So you kind of see some of the expectations and requirements from the class. So for me, engagement, through Moodle and the assignments and being here is important. I don't want you guys to actually get behind. I mean, I'm here to answer questions and all those types of things. That's not an issue for me. I just want to make sure that you guys actually learn something. And I learned something from you guys. Hopefully there's time where we can kind of learn a little bit about each other, in between, we're the lectures and in between the posting engagements, we can learn a little bit about each other and, create an environment where we're all here to grow professionally and personally. Um, some of the things that I love sports. You can kind of see that the sun's coming out here. So I get a little bit of sunshine. It's been kind of gloomy and windy. As you guys heard over the weekend, we had 100-mile-per-hour winds, which is kind of weird sometimes. But, you know, here at the university, as I've kind of mentioned before, we want to make sure that you guys learn something. We want, you guys to be better people, which is what I want as well. And hopefully at some point, who knows, we might bump into each other and learn again. So one of the things you guys heard of California. It's a different time zone than Washington, D.C. We're 3 hours behind. So it's 11:15 in Washington, D.C. at this moment. So, they've been up for a little bit compared to us. One of the things before I get started into California real estate that is different is in other states or territories like Washington, D.C., New York, Pennsylvania, you can get a real estate license when you pass the bar exam. The bar exam is the exam that you take to become a certified lawyer. So in some states, they just ask you if you want a real estate license. And most people say yes, because why would you turn down a free real estate license? So that allows you to actually go through and sell real estate. In some states, they actually go through the attorney to actually make a real estate transaction happen. And what I mean by that is the only person who's allowed to actually make a real estate transaction happen is the attorney. All the negotiating, all the contract signing goes straight from the attorney to the buyer and to the seller. Whether the seller is a corporation or an individual, whether the buyer is a corporation, an individual, the medium person, the person in the middle is the attorney. So they're the ones who handle all the paperwork and all that type of stuff. So that's just one philosophical difference between the state of California and other states. Now, in certain instances, there's opportunities for someone who's licensed in what I call one of the big four to roll their license over to another state. The big four is Florida, Texas, New York, and California. Those are the states that have four of the strictest rules and laws when it comes to real estate because things are different. But in some of the other states, you just need to have a license in one of those states, take a quick class, and you're licensed in that state. So before I get into California, does anyone have any experience with real estate personally that they would like to share? I know in different countries things are different. I've seen people go on trade missions to different countries and where the real estate process is completely different. Prices are higher. In California, the average price right now is about, specifically here, the average median price is almost $900,000. So if you have a home that is 2 to 3 bedrooms, 1 to 2 baths, the average cost is about $900,000, which is about a 40% rise from a couple years ago, right before the pandemic started. So that helps us notice how things are going. A lot of people working from home. There's a lot more people that want to purchase homes. So that average price has risen. All right. So let's go on and get into it. Now, just to let you guys know how my lecture style is. Like I said, I like engagement before. Do ask questions, raise your hand. You can turn your cameras on. If you need to stop me to ask a question in between time, feel free. I like an open environment. I kind of joke and say I really don't like to hear my own self-talk, which kind of, after a while, gets annoying because, before the pandemic, we would pre-record lectures when I was teaching, so there wasn't any engagement. The students would just watch the lectures. But since you guys are actually here in live, I actually like to have you guys actually ask questions, be engaged, inquire about things, so that I can see and prove that you're actually understanding the material. It might take a little bit to soak in. Like I said, the first couple of weeks, we're going to focus on California. Then we're going to shift to a universal aspect. But that is also a good thing because once we're focused on certain things, it makes the rest easier. The California exam is probably one of the most extensive exams in the United States when it comes to individually being licensed, just because there's so many different things that people don't realize are an aspect of California real estate that you need to worry about. Or, wrong use of words, I wouldn't say worry about, but need to take in and to learn, and then realize that you don't use it. So I'm going to get into our lecture. I want to make sure that you guys can see this. I don't use Google Meets that much. All right. So some of the things that we're going to touch on is going to be the history of real property
Hello,
ownership.
Professor.
In California, we call real and personal property. And then we have a thing called bundle of rights that comes with the property. And then you have the 5 aspects of things that create a fixture. So one of the reasons why California is so different is because the actual history of the state of California. So the first people that came to California were Native Americans, and missionaries converted. The first explorer to touch California was Vasco Nunez de Balboa in 1513, who went across the Pacific Ocean and claimed what we now know as California for the Spanish king and queen. So for almost 300 years, California was under Spanish rule. And San Diego was first settled by Juan Cabrera. And in 1769, the Spanish developments were classified here as forts and villages. Villages were mainly known for agriculture, food, fruits, vegetables, wheat, barley, all those types of things. The presidios, which were forts, is where people lived. And if you actually wanted to have land to use for whatever reasons that you wanted to, if you were a private citizen, you were granted that opportunity. And then after that, we have what we call missions that were spread around the state of California that were here to actually bring in, allow people to actually understand and believe in Christianity. Then after Spanish rule, it was taken over by Mexico. So a lot of California was Mexico. It's not the Mexico we know today, but in the 1800s, it was a large aspect of California, and the West Coast was Mexico. And then in the Mexican-American War, Americans came in, we fought over the territory, created tension, created that, and then California became part of the United States. So if you ever come to California, you'll notice that a lot of our streets have some type of Spanish or Mexican influence. The missions are still here. They're very prominent. They're historical landmarks. But you can see our Spanish rule and our influence. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 actually ended the Mexican-American War, which allowed California to become eventually a state, which was 2 years later, September 9th, 1850. So California has been a state in the United States for almost 172 years. Now, why is that so significant? Is because that Mexican and Spanish influence literally influences how California is ran from a real estate perspective as well as from a legal perspective. So when we started doing these land grants, we came up with the Board of Land Commissioners, which is an area that allows us to settle claims from private land, right? Excuse me. So if you wanted to claim ownership to a land, you needed to have, and there was no proof of either writing or proof of ownership, you went to the Board of Land Commissioners, who created a system which we now call recording, or in California we call it title, which proves ownership. We created that system so that we know who owns what property and can't just be taken over either violently or through any other forms of reason. This also influenced our legal system, which is known, from being influenced from English common law, formerly the Spanish Civil Code, and in California, which is one of the reasons why it's really different than other states, is because we have what we call community property. And what I mean by community property is, it kind of goes along with the actual aspect of who owns what, depending on relationship. So I'm gonna step out of this for a second. And just from, I want you guys to kind of think about this. In what I mean by community property, right? In community property, if you are married, right? If you are married in the state of California, you are entitled to half of what you both own. So if we owned 10 properties, right? You have the option of, or if you guys, 10 properties, you guys divorce, you and your spouse divorce, you're entitled to 5 of them, or if they all get sold, you're entitled to half of the proceeds. It's one of the reasons why California is so different, is because automatically you are entitled to half. That's community property. So even if, they're not yours, even if, unless stated in some form of legal document that whatever I come in with is what I leave with, you get half. And there's nothing nobody really can do about it. You can take it to court. Court will just state community property laws, and you'll lose that case. So, that's one of the distinct reasons why California is so different. Not only because we have our English common law, community property, we have, a huge, Spanish and Mexican influence. So a lot of the things that you'll see here are completely different. Does that make sense? Hopefully, you could just raise your hand if that makes sense. You don't actually have to. You could just raise your hand. So California is different. A lot of states don't have community property. A lot of Washington, D.C. doesn't have community property. But a lot of the states that have a huge Spanish and Mexican influence have community property rules, especially California. Ours is the most strict because we're one of the last states in the union, like that last half, but we were a Spanish Mexican territory. So that has a huge, huge influence on how we do things here. So I just wanted to make sure that people actually understand that. So now in modern California, based upon the evolution of our legal system and the way we've branched off and created property, we have two types of settings. We have an urban setting, which is a population dense area that's heavily dense or close to a lot of people. Suburban, which is a little bit further out, that is not necessarily as dense and takes you a little bit further to get to places. So there are pretty much four major areas that I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of, that what we call population centers, that people aim to go to or surrounded by. You have Greater LA, which is where I'm in, San Diego, which is the biggest city closest to the Mexican border, Sacramento, and San Francisco. So the majority of people, when they come to California, are surrounded by or going to one of these areas. All right. So California's definition of real estate is the industry or profession as well as a physical sense of land and buildings, which we call real property. All right. California is one of the major states that makes a distinction between real property, personal property. What we mean by physical sense of land and buildings is the actual ability for you to see what you own, right? It can't be moved easily, right? So, and what I mean by can't be moved easily is the aspect of, if it in California, if you can pick it up and take it with you, it's not real property. If it takes some effort to move and then it can move, it's real property, right? For example, a car, a purse, you know, that's personal property. You can move it. I can't pick up a house and take it with me mobile, right? I can't just pick it up, lift it up off the ground and take it with me. That's real property. All right. Now, if I have a what we call a mobile home, right, which is something that is a home, similar to an RV or a trailer. If I can have the RV and trailer is considered personal because I can move it no matter where I go. The mobile home is still stuck to a piece of land. That is real property. So think of it that way. Anything that I can take with me is personal property. Anything that I can't or have a struggle to move is real property. All right. Now, in California, you have assumed when you purchase a property, you have what we call a naturally assumed bundle of rights, where you have the right to choose exactly what you do with the property. The first given right is the right to own and possess, which means that you can own the property, you can live there, you can choose who lives there, you own it. You're not doing anything illegal or anything of that nature. You own the property. Second, you have the ability to use the property. If you're going to use it for a business, you're going to use it to live in, you're just naturally going to use that for whatever purpose you see fit. Third, right, the right to enjoy, however you may say fit. Encumber or borrow against, which means if, you want to, let's say you want to start a business, for example, and it takes a lot of money to start, you can borrow against your home. It's obviously not recommended, but that's an option. You can dispose of it right? You can sell it to somebody else. You can't just throw it away. And you can exclude others who do not share ownership. And here's what we mean by that. In certain states, you're not allowed to tell people who can join and who can't come, right? That's where a lot of times get the law involved. But in California, you only need to get the law involved unless there's an actual issue, right? Trespassing or something along those lines. That's when the law gets involved. Now, the government does have some form of controls when it comes to the rights, but these are basic rights. They want to make sure that you don't go overboard with it. You still maintain your rights of ownership within reason, which is only fair. Now, the rights of California to own property does not include the right to destroy. And the reason why it doesn't is because we don't want our neighbors to lose value on the property because we were doing some questionable things when it comes to our property. And we also don't want to negatively affect their health environments or their safety if we tear down a home. Now, in California, you'll see a lot of people tear down homes because the structure isn't physically capable of withstanding a family and where they just build it back up. But most people don't tear down homes without a reason and without the ability to have an inspection done by someone else that is a part of the city or a part of the state. You can't just purchase a home and tear it down because you feel like it. You have to prove legitimate reason to, right? I know that's a little bit different in other places, but that's how it's done in California. That's one of the reasons why it's not as easy to be a licensed real estate professional compared to other states. So, our property ownership is neither absolute nor unlimited. It is not, within the actual parameters of ownership. It's not fully complete, nor do you have the power to do whatever you want. You still have limits, you still have restrictions, you still have things that you need to be aware of, be cautious of, and understand how things work, right? So the government is still in control when you own property. It's just that it's a little bit more on a, they're not as forward facing as other places maybe. So in California, we expect you to be aware of zoning and building codes, fair housing, anti discrimination. What we mean by that is the ability for everyone to own a home, right? If you have the money, you can prove the money, you have the fair and equal right of someone just compared to someone else to own a home. You know, you can't tell me because I'm Buddhist or I practice Hindu or Muslim, I can't own a home. Doesn't work like that here. Health and safety regulations, when it comes to things like asbestos, the type of paint used, that is mandatory. That is things that get checked in what we have in the process, which we call an inspection period. Police power, that's you know noise complaints or crime is actually being happening. The police still have the right to come in. Permits and licenses when it comes to actual things that you may want, pool, jacuzzi, that type of stuff. Public interest issues. If you, for example, are doing construction all day and all night, where you're disturbing your neighbors, or you build a 30,000 square foot mansion and you're the only one that has like a home that's over 1,400 square feet, something like that. Small. The government still has the right to come in and be like, hey, you can't do that. That's not what the look is supposed to be. Or if you're an historical landmark and you're trying to change how the outside looks. In California, we have certain areas where the homes have to look the same. That's what makes it a historical landmark. The outside looks the same, the inside can be updated as much as you want. But the outside has to look the same because all the homes are exactly the same. So our actual definition of real estate that we stick to and are remembered is land affixed to land, right? Which means I can't pick it up and move it. Appurtenant to land, which means it's in the vicinity or it comes with it. And immovable by law. Can't pick it up, take it with me. I can't, you know, I can't do it with help. It stays still. It's immovable. It cannot move by law. Or it takes a large amount of effort. That's usually what it means by law. So for land, includes the surface of the earth, lateral support, subjacent support, and materials under the surface. So what do we mean by lateral and subjacent support? When you have, a home on land, right? Depending on the type of land that is built on, there's a lot of things that go into how that home stays still. What type of foundation is it? Is it slab? Is it concrete? Is it in the dirt and braced to the ground, braced through the ground? However that home is built, whatever is keeping that home on the land, that is part of the home. And then materials under the surface. You never know. You could be under oil, you could be under minerals, you could have water there. That is part, in California, that is part of the land. You own that, right? If it comes up from your property line, that is yours. Somebody just can't take it. It's theft, that's stealing, it's illegal. So whatever comes out of your box or your vicinity of property, that is yours. All right. Like I said, substances include water, minerals, oil, gas. Then you also have air rights, which is above the surface. So obviously, depending on where you are, you may have, planes flying over trying to come into the airport. They don't, they have what we call a floor, which means that they can only go a specific area or a specific height in the air. They can't fly directly above you, of your home. If you see in movies how sometimes it seems like they're flying a little low or close to the roof, you can't do that. As a homeowner in California, you have a specific height expected that pilots can't and planes can't touch, right? You can hear it because you obviously something that's going that fast, that high, having that many people, it's not like you're not going to hear the sound. You just can't hear it as loud as it's supposed to be because you have rights above the surface as a homeowner. They fly too low, they get fined, all these types of things that they actually have to expect. And mineral rights, right? Mineral rights, that's oil and gas. So there are two rules. You have the rule of capture and the rule of extraction. The rule of capture basically is if it's on your property and you find a way to actually keep it, it's yours. You can decide whatever you want to do with it. Right? If someone wants to come on your property, they find you're on oil and they want to come onto your property, they have to pay you to be on there. You have the right to charge them for that. You have the right to have it extracted in the way that you best seem fit. That's reasonable, right? Having someone come in, you pay them to do it. You have someone come to, pull it out. You let the government on your property. If they pull it out, you can have, you can naturally have them actually pay for the damage done to your property. That is completely fair. There's no issue in doing that. So we have natural rights that other places don't have. And I want to stop there just to make sure that, you guys actually understand that, right? You kind of see how things are a little bit different, right? California, it's a little bit more enhancing, where it encompasses everything that comes with the property, right? So there are a lot of things that people don't realize that are part of the actual property. The mineral, the water, what you see and what you can't see, above you and below you, right? So California's real estate laws are very, very, very enhancing, and they're very specific. So how many of you guys have actual experience with real estate where you are? Or is this your first experience with learning real estate in general, right? How many of you guys own a home or know someone that owns property? Nobody, huh? What? Nobody knows anyone that owns property? This is everyone's first experience with real estate in complete general, right? You don't live in an apartment, you don't own a home, you don't own property. Wow, interesting. Hmm, okay.
Hello, nice to meet you, Leon. Sorry for the delay.
No problem at all. Don't even worry. Time differences is different for everyone. Here it's still, oh, almost 9 o'clock a.m. So my days, this is the start, pretty much the start of my day. So I know for some it might be a little bit later. It might even be nighttime. So it's all good. Not a problem. Do you have any experience with real estate where you are, Carlo, by any chance? Either renting an apartment or owning a home or know someone that owns property? All right. So, yes, perfect. So, did they ever tell you about that experience? How long it took, how hard it was, how easy it was? Did they let you know those types of things? So, like I said, guys, I know this is kind of that first class, we call first class jitters, where people don't want to talk. You guys can talk, you can interrupt me, you can ask questions. I mean, don't interrupt me in a negative way. But, like I said, I'm here to learn from you guys, and as well as you guys learn from me. So, we can always go back and forth. We can ask questions, you can take a break, all those types of things. So, I don't know how much you guys have been in the screen, but what I like to do is when we're at a certain point, just to keep everyone refreshed so that, no one's necessarily falling asleep, is I like to give a quick 10-minute break. So we'll do you guys want to take a quick 10-minute break, or do you want to go ahead and we finish and then ask questions and go from that part?
Um, Hello, Leon. So go
Yes.
ahead and finish.
All right, I'll go ahead and finish.
Yeah. So I was
I
not able to
I
speak because. Okay, sorry. Because I'm outside and it's not quiet. So
no
that's
problem.
why I'm not. Yeah, I'm not participating.
Oh, that's not a problem. As long
Yeah.
as you're able to, you guys can always later ask questions or anything. Um, like I said, it depends on where you are. It can be loud, it can be quiet. Um, so, as long as you're able to actually understand, which is what I hope, like I said, first class, most people just want to kind of sit back, learn, and see how things are going to go. And then everyone starts opening up more and more each week, which is completely fine with me. But always, want to reach out and check to see if there are questions before so that, no one feels like they're getting, overlooked or anything of that nature. So that's why I always ask consistently.
Yeah. So far I have understood everything you said. So yeah.
Perfect. All right. Let's get back into it. All right. So you also have what we call water rights in California. Now, depending on where you live, you either can be surrounded by water or bordering or in the vicinity. So there are three different types of water rights, right? The first one is what we call riparian, is where you border a stream or a lake, right? You know, littoral is if you're on the sea or ocean. So in California, if you are near Lake Arrowhead, you have, and you're close to the water, you have riparian rights. If you're in, for example, like Santa Monica or Malibu on the beach, you have littoral rights because the beach is the Pacific Ocean. Then also, if you're in some rural places, where there's not many people around, there's a lot of trees and things like that, you have correlative use where water is underground that allows, you to live the way you live, help the trees grow, things like that. So there are different ways that water is actually dispersed. And, like I said, that is part of your actual ownership, right? Because it's encompassing everything. And then there's also, possibilities of prior appropriation, which is water that's been used before. So water rights are different in every state. California is one of them, I would say stricter, is because as an owner, you have the exclusive right? You get to choose exactly how you want this to go. You have the right to take all the water to use for your beneficial and best use of land, your land. So if there's a well on your property, you can choose how to use that water. And the only way for someone to influence how you decide to use that water is they have to go through the state. And it's not necessarily an easy process. So, you have to file, you have to go to state, you have to go to court. It is a huge hassle. So, if someone wants to sell the water that comes from their well on their property, if that benefits the use of that homeowner, then that's okay. So it all just has to go with a process of making it legal, making it efficient, and beneficial for the homeowner. Right. And where we go back to the correlative water right, which is the underground, the owner's entitled to only take a reasonable amount. And, that benefits the land, which is also known as irrigation. But the question that always arises is there a universal use or definition of the word reasonable in this situation? So that's always I would say, the kind of gray area or area that doesn't really balance out or make sense for everyone, because there isn't an actual accurate definition or meaning of the word reasonable, just because of the fact that I can come from a family of 12 and we use more water than other people compared to a family of 3. What's reasonable, right? Are you going to tell me I have to limit how long people take showers in the family, how much water they drink? What is the definition of reasonable? So that's why, it can get a little bit questionable or non-specific, just because of the fact that I don't know what some people may consider reasonable compared to other people. All right, so now we get into property affixed to the land. Just some definitions for everyone to know. Affixed is building improvements mainly, so we're looking at shoring up the foundation in case of an earthquake or flood or a mudslide so that it doesn't move. Anything that improves the actual building to withstand, maybe natural disaster or something along those lines. Attached is landscaping that's attached by actual roots, trees, bushes, things like that. Incidental are things that, in a real estate definition, are needed to have an effective use of the property. Now, that can be utility pipes, gas, water, electric. Attachments are fence. That's because most homes here, people built fences and put them there. They weren't there from the beginning, because when we were in Spanish rule and Mexican rule, everything was open. So people literally started putting down fences. Easements is basically understanding who has the right of way, what goes where, right? Sometimes you'll have like an area where water flows right behind your house, right? So that has to be recognized as an easement, because it either splits a road or it changes how people look at things or how to access, there could be a bridge behind your place. All of these different types of things, those are easements, because that's just, that is what was created to change how the property looks. And then fixtures is a patio cover, because it's something that's attached to the property that enhances a way of living, blocks the sun, along those types of things. So that's under the widespread definition of what's affixed to the land, right? What I can't pick up and move. I can take off the patio cover, but do I really want to? When this is all together, this makes up the property, right? I can pick up a tree and move it or cut it down, but think about how much of the effort I can. If I don't get into the roots, the tree will just grow back. But if I take out the roots, the tree can't go back, right? If I try to just naturally on my own get rid of the utility pipes, it damages the property, because the utility pipes are actually attached to the property, right? So trying to move these things or get rid of them singularly, one by one, it can damage the property. it can make the property not up to its highest and best use from what we want it to do. So that's why these things are hard, right? That's why it's real property, because I can see it. It's hard to move. So then we have appurtenances, right, which are easements in stock in a mutual water company. So in California, if you have a power line attached to your property, that's an easement. In my parents' house, there is a power line that's literally right in front of the house. If there's a water, water company, right? There's not just one water company in California. Depending on where you are, you can have a small one, which is owned by the people. You can have a big one, all these types of things. So having those types of things are things that you have to have mentioned in with the property if that property is going to be sold. Right? So now immovable by law, just to make sure we all understand it. If an object is not allowed to be moved from the land it is resting on, then is a part of that property as a matter of law. So if it was created by the government, or it can't be moved without something drastic happening, right? If a power line goes down, nobody has power. That's immovable by law, right? It kind of relies on the fact that we can't have anything be damaged drastically or for a large amount of people if someone's just trying to move because they don't like the way it looks. If I take down a power line, that's also not only getting rid of power, but that's a line that isn't attached to anything, which could start a fire, which could start a brush fire, which could, people could lose homes, people could lose lives. All of these types of things that we don't want to go down or deal with is why the property is immovable by law. Right? Then we have our personal property, right? Everything that is not real property, everything that can be moved. Right? Cars, clothes, rings, jewelry. Right? If I live out my car, if I live out my RV, I can pick up my RV literally, as in turn the keys on and drive it. Right? That's why it's personal property. The documents about my home or my stocks, my contracts, right? All those things, that's real, that's personal property because I can move it. Even though they're needed to actually to actually prove that you own real property, since I can move it, it's still personal property. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. The property itself, right, the homes, that's real. The documents that prove the ownership is personal. The reason why I'm focusing on that is because in the real estate exam, that's where a lot of people get questions wrong about. A lot of people get confused with that, and a lot of people still don't learn that to this day. Even though we don't really talk about it when we're actually in the field, there's still the fact that you have to know the difference because it can pop up. It's not a common occurrence. It's an occurrence that pops up. Right? If you have a bill of sale, so somebody sells you a car, right? We know our car is personal property, but the paper is also personal property as well. So implements is basically the proof of how much crop you do in a year. So if I have a farm, the farm is right. If I have a farm, the farm is the real property. The notation that I'm, had 1,000,000 bushels of corn cultivated last year is the personal property, right? So those are the things that are important and the difference between the two. So real property can become personal property. Like I said, like I mentioned before, because I can pick it up, take it out of the root, and give it to someone. A personal property can become real. So let's say I purchase a small fir, right? Fir is a pretty popular tree in California. And I plant it into the ground. I take it out of the plant here and plant it into the ground to watch it grow. It now just became real property because it is rooted in the ground on the land. So we have the ability to turn one to the other, right? Movable becomes immovable, and immovable becomes movable. That's how we flip it around. So we have a fixture, right? A fixture is something that can't be moved. So how do we actually test to determine what's a fixture, the type of fixture, and these types of things? First way is, how was it attached? Was it planted? Was it there before? Was it something that you brought in? Right? Is it capable of being used for ordinary use? What we mean by ordinary use is there a capacity and capability of this item in question to be used the way it was intended to use, or is it being adapted so that it can change into something that it usually isn't meant to be? Right? For example, I wanted to build a patio cover, right? So I build a patio cover, but it's not on the patio anymore. It's not covering the patio. Someone tried to use it as an umbrella in the front yard, not the backyard, right? Because usually patio covers are in the backyard. Some have them on the front, but the patio cover was meant to cover the patio. If it's being used, if it was able to be picked up and used somewhere else, that's not its ordinary use. That's not its intended use. That means that someone changed how it's supposed to be, which means that it's not what it usually is anymore. Usually a patio cover is real property. Since someone has now used it as an umbrella and picked it up and moved it, at that moment it's personal property. Then you also have the relationship of the parties. Who are the people involved? What are their relationship to each other? Buyer, seller, family. The intent. What were they trying to use that item for? What was agreed upon between them? Does that make sense? So usually the law of flavor is someone who has, in certain situations, the one that has the money or the one that's using the money to purchase. Usually if you have the money and you're paying for the transaction, it's a little bit, you're usually favored depending on what situation you're in. Lender over the borrower, the lender's the one that has the money compared to the borrower who's trying to get the money. Buyer, the one who's using the money to purchase, and tenant, the one who's renting from the actual person that owns the property. So a trade fixture is personal property of a business that is affixed or annexed to the real property. And what we mean by that is it was not directly attached. Someone brought it in and made it attached, plugged it in, sat it down, bolted it into the ground, but it could still be lifted and moved, right? So if you have a store is the real property. The items that you sell are personal because you want to make sure they're easily out. So that cash register that you utilize and put in is personal because it wasn't there at first. I can pick up the cash register, move it somewhere else around the store, or if we get a new location, take that one there and bring in a new one. Same thing for a safe. Even though the safe has potentially things in it, it is still personal property because it can be moved unless it's affixed into the ground, right? Which most businesses don't usually have. They have a personal safe that you can just pick up, take with you, those types of things. So the tenant can remove any personal property before the end of the lease, but has to repair damages to the real property. So for example, right, in my store, I rented from the owner of the building, but I put a big old sign on the front that has my business on it. That can stay until we move, but once it's moved, I have to take the sign. Then I got to fix anything that damaged that property while I had the sign up. So if I need to replace the beam that held the sign, I need to do that. If I have to paint to the original color that it was before, I have to do that. So naturally, that's a part of my lease that could help, that could come out of my deposit if I just don't want to deal with it. Or if I want the deposit back, I just pay for it. So all of those types of things are important when it comes to this actual property ownership or lease back, right? We call a property that you don't own but you're in a lease. And then if you leave but you still need a couple more, just some real estate lingo. So does that make sense to everyone? Hopefully it does. So, that's just an intro to California real estate. It's very extensive, very difficult. We have not, I want to say difficult, it's very time consuming. We have a lot of different types of properties. We have a lot of different opportunities for ownership. But we're also one of the states that everybody wants to live in, right? Not just the weather, but, our community property, location, all these types of things, right? So we have large amounts of opportunities to actually become a homeowner in California, right? So that's our intro. Like I said, I don't like lecturing a lot because what I mean by a lot is just to myself because I can hear myself talk a lot. During this pandemic, I've done a lot of online teaching. So that's why I said you guys can step in, ask questions, So that's why I'm kind of a little bit more engaging hands-on as a professor. Um, but that is my intro to California real estate. Like I said, when our textbook comes in, we're going to, start shifting and adapting towards that. Um, so, any questions on what I presented? Hopefully, nobody fell asleep. Just kidding. So, yes. You have a question?
I'd love to know if the material will be shared via emails because I missed, I think, quite a lot. My network kept cutting.
Yeah, not a problem. I already shared it. I gave the presentation to staff, so they should be uploading it to Moodle so you guys can have it. Um, Hopefully they do that. If they don't, let me know and I will send it out to everyone. Also, the recording, the lecture, like our class session today, is recorded so that you can watch it back and look at it again. So what I'll do is once we're done, I'll check in to make sure that it's posted in Moodle so that everyone can have it. And then this recording will be in Moodle. Just probably give it maybe end of, I would say, this afternoon, my time, which will probably be in about, if we end in the next 20-30 minutes, I would probably say 3 hours. This whole recording should be on Moodle. So I'll make sure that's done today. That's not a problem at all. And I'll make sure that the PowerPoint is up as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thank you. Any other questions? You guys are a quiet bunch. Very quiet. All right. So let's see. Is anything else? Let's check in. Yes.
I'm so sorry. I forgot to ask again. Are we going to expect the lessons to be round about this time every day, or how frequently are they gonna be?
Frequently it's gonna be once a week. Um, I think we're gonna go back. I think this was just a one-time thing. We're gonna go back to Mondays at 7 a.m. Well, 10 a.m. Eastern time, which is Washington D.C. time. Uh, I don't know what time is that for everyone else's time zones. But what I'll do is I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty sure they want to stick to Mondays for this class.
Okay, thank you. I think Monday should be perfect. I'm not sure what time is it now at your area. It's 7:20 in the evening here.
7:20 in the evening.
Okay.
So
Yes.
7 a.m. for you would be 5 o'clock, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that would be suitable for me. I think 10 would be suitable.
10. So 10 for you is what, 8
Yes.
o'clock?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask, because this was that Monday at 7 a.m. That Monday at 10 a.m. Washington D.C. time is what I was suggested for me. That's 7 a.m. That's bright and early for me. So let me confirm to make sure they want to keep it at that time, And I will obviously update via WhatsApp. Does anyone else have a conflict with time? If
I
Monday at
think
7,
I'll
I was gonna say if Monday at
I'll
7 p.m. works for you guys, just raise your hand. Okay, so it doesn't work for all of you guys. And just one. What about everybody else? 2. Okay. Sarah, are you in the same time zone? Or a different time zone?
A different time zone. Where I am, it's 8 o'clock. It's 8 p.m. 8:20 p.m.
8:20. Okay, so
So your time 11 is okay for me. Actually, 10:11 is okay for me.
okay, so Monday at okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What about everybody else? Would that time still work?
Yes, it works for me.
Okay. All right. So I'll confirm that time just to make sure that that's okay. Because that's what I think they want. I mean, that's fine with me. So we can just go back and do it. We'll go back to Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern time from here on out. All right. Any other questions or anything else you guys need?
Is there any study guide for the class?
Yes, that's all going to be posted. We're waiting on the book to get here. I keep confirming and asking when it's coming so that I can create and have all of that for you guys. I'm working on that. Give me hopefully by next class. So by Monday, I should be able to have everything ready for you guys. PowerPoint,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, study guide, everything. That's my hope and plan. So once I get confirmation that the book has arrived, I'll have it uploaded. I'll have all of that uploaded into Moodle for you guys.
Okay, thanks.
Not a problem. Anything else? Any other questions, guys? Well, if there are no more questions, here's the good news. We'll be done for the day. So, first class for me is usually the shortest class outside of any test that we take. So, I'm going to give you guys some of your evening back because clearly it's 8 o'clock for some of you guys already. So, it's already the end of the day, whereas my day is barely starting. So, I'll give you guys some of your time back. If you have questions, if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me via WhatsApp. I will see you guys next Monday at 10 a.m. and hoping that we have all our books and stuff so that I can have everything prepared for you guys. All right. You guys have a great evening, great week, and see you Monday.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good day.
Good morning.
It is still morning, so I'll take the good night and the good morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.